The clock on the living room wall ticked softly, each second echoing louder than it should have in Sarah's ears. She sat curled up on the sofa, scrolling absently through her phone, waiting for David to finish his shower. It had been a long day, and normally she would be excited to have dinner together. But tonight her mood shifted in an instant. David's phone, lying face up on the coffee table, lit up with a message. Sarah's eyes flicked toward it, almost by accident. She hadn't meant to look, but the glowing screen was impossible to ignore. "Thank you for today. I don't know what I'd do without you. Emily." Sarah froze. Her fingers went cold. Her chest tightened. She knew Emily, at least by name. David had mentioned her a few times, always casually, always with that tone people used when talking about work. Emily stayed late today. Emily helped with the presentation. Emily this, Emily that, but this didn't sound like work. By the time David walked out of the bathroom, towel slung around his shoulders, humming to himself, Sarah had already tucked the phone back in place and forced her face into a mask of calm. He leaned down and kissed her forehead, water still dripping from his hair, and smiled. "You hungry? I was thinking of ordering in tonight." Sarah nodded, but her voice betrayed her. "Sure, whatever you like." He didn't notice. Not yet. But inside her, a storm had already started. That night, while David scrolled through Netflix, Sarah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The message replayed in her head like a broken record. "I don't know what I'd do without you." What did Emily mean by that? Why did she feel the need to thank him so personally? For the first time in their marriage, Sarah felt a shadow she couldn't name, creeping between them. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains as David rushed around, buttoning his shirt and searching for his tie. Normally, Sarah would tease him, help him find it, maybe kiss him before he left. But today she sat at the edge of the bed, watching quietly, her thoughts circling like vultures. "Seen my blue tie?" he asked, digging through the closet. "It's on the chair," she answered flatly. He glanced back at her, raising an eyebrow. "You okay? You seem off." Sarah forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired." But she wasn't fine. All day, as she tried to focus on her own tasks at work, her mind wandered. Were David and Emily having lunch together right now? Was he texting her? Was she laughing at his jokes the way Sarah used to? That evening, David came home with a bag of groceries. He grinned as he placed them on the counter. "Thought I'd cook tonight. Pasta, your favorite." Normally, Sarah would have lit up at the gesture, but instead, she mumbled, "That's nice." David studied her carefully, his brow furrowing. "Sarah, seriously, what's going on?" "Nothing," she said too quickly, turning away to busy herself with setting the table. But inside, the questions ate at her. Every time his phone buzzed, she flinched. Every time he mentioned staying late at the office, her heart sank. She tried to shake it off, reminding herself of the man she had married. The man who held her hand through sleepless nights, who once drove 3 hours just to bring her soup when she was sick. But doubts have a way of silencing reason, and hers were growing louder each day. By the third night, the silence between them was heavy. David reached for her hand as they lay in bed, but she pulled away, pretending to be half asleep. His sigh filled the dark room, long and tired, and Sarah, with her back turned, stared into the shadows, wondering if she was losing him piece by piece. By the end of the week, Sarah's patience was unraveling. Every little thing David did seemed to scratch at her nerves. On Friday evening, he walked through the door later than usual, jacket slung over his shoulder, hair slightly tousled, as if from a long day. He kissed her cheek and said, "Sorry, Emily needed help with some reports, so I stayed back a bit." Sarah's heart clenched at the casual mention of her name. She forced a laugh that didn't sound like her own. "Emily again. Seems like she really depends on you." David paused, sensing the edge in her tone. "She's a co-worker, Sarah. She just needed some guidance. That's all." but Sarah couldn't let it go. Do you always have to be the one guiding her? Doesn't she have anyone else in that office? David frowned, his voice lowering. What are you implying? Nothing, she said quickly, too quickly. Just noticing. The air between them grew sharp, words hanging heavy in the space they didn't fill. David turned away, muttering something about taking a shower, while Sarah sat at the dinner table, appetite gone. Later that night, when he reached for her under the covers, she pulled away again. This time, David didn't sigh or stay quiet. He sat up, turned on the bedside lamp, and looked at her seriously. All right, enough. Talk to me. What's going on? Sarah swallowed hard, staring at the ceiling. Her heart pounded, torn between staying silent or letting the fear spill out. But instead of answering, she whispered, I'm tired, and turned away. David sat there for a long moment before switching off the light, but Sarah could feel it. He wasn't asleep. Neither of them was. The storm inside her had grown too loud, and she knew it wouldn't stay contained much longer. The confrontation was coming. Saturday morning should have been peaceful. The weekend was usually their time. Slow breakfasts, coffee on the balcony, laughing about nothing. But today, the silence was thick. David poured coffee for both of them, sliding a mug across the table. You're quiet again, he said softly. Sarah, we can't keep doing this. She wrapped her hands around the warm cup, but didn't drink. Her throat felt tight. Finally, the words slipped out, sharp and trembling. Are you in love with her? David froze. The question hit the air like glass shattering. He blinked at her, stunned. What? In love with who? Emily, Sarah snapped, her voice breaking. Don't act like you don't know. I saw the messages. I've heard you mention her 100 times. She texts you like you're hers, not mine. David leaned back in his chair, his face pale with shock. For a moment, he didn't speak, and that silence twisted inside Sarah like a knife. She pushed her chair back, standing abruptly. I knew it. That's why you've been coming home late. That's why you're so distracted. All this time, I thought we had something unshakable. But stop. David cut in, his voice firm but trembling. He stood too, moving closer. But Sarah stepped back. No, you stop! She cried, tears brimming in her eyes. I've been going crazy all week, imagining you two at the office, laughing, texting behind my back. And that message, I don't know what I'd do without you. Do you have any idea what that sounds like to your wife? David's shoulders sank. He ran a hand through his hair, staring at her with pained eyes. Sarah, no, it's not like that. You've got it all wrong. Then explain, she demanded, her voice shaking. Because right now it feels like I'm losing you. The room went silent again, both of them breathing heavily, hearts pounding. The storm had broken, and now there was no turning back. David took a deep breath, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for her shoulders. But Sarah flinched back, and the rejection hurt him more than he expected. His voice lowered, soft but urgent. Sarah, listen to me. Emily, she's not what you think. Sarah folded her arms, her tears threatening to spill. Then what is she, David? Because from where I stand, it looks like she has your attention more than I do. He shook his head, his eyes raw with frustration. No, you are my everything. Emily, she's going through hell right now. Sarah blinked, thrown off by the softness in his tone. David continued, his voice cracking slightly. Her father's in the hospital. Cancer, stage 4. She doesn't have family nearby. She doesn't even drive. She was breaking down at work, and I couldn't just ignore it. So I gave her a ride. Sometimes stayed late to help her finish reports, because she couldn't concentrate. That's what the text was about. She was thanking me for being there, not what you're imagining. The fight drained from Sarah's body, replaced by a heavy ache of guilt. Her lips trembled. Why didn't you just tell me? Because I didn't want you to worry, David whispered. I thought it wasn't important enough to bring home. But I see now I should have been honest. I should have told you everything. Instead, I made you doubt me." He stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers, pleading. "Sarah, I swear to you, on us, on everything we've built, I've never looked at anyone the way I look at you. You're my wife, my best friend, my home, Emily. She's just a colleague who needed kindness. That's all." Tears spilled freely down Sarah's cheeks. The sharp edges of suspicion softened, replaced by the memory of every sacrifice David had made for her. The man who never let go of her hand, even when life was hardest. Her voice broke. I got scared, David. You mean everything to me, and the thought of losing you." David gently cupped her face, wiping her tears with his thumb. "You'll never lose me, not in this lifetime." For the first time in days, she leaned into his touch, breathing in the familiar warmth of his embrace. The storm inside her finally began to quiet. The tension that had weighed on the house for days began to lift, though traces of hurt still lingered in the air. David kept his arms around her, holding her as if he was afraid she might slip away if he let go. Sarah buried her face against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I hate that I doubted you," she whispered, her voice muffled. He kissed the top of her head. "And I hate that I gave you reasons to. You deserved honesty. From now on, no matter how small something seems, I'll share it with you. No more secrets." Sarah pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. They were wet, glistening in the soft light of the kitchen. "You promise?" "I promise," he said firmly. Then with a faint smile, he added, "Besides, if I ever mess up again, I know you'll make me sleep on the couch for a week." Sarah laughed through her tears, the sound breaking the heaviness that had clung to them. "At least a week," she teased, wiping her face. The rain started outside, tapping softly against the windows. David led her to the couch, and they sat close, wrapped in a blanket, watching the storm. The flicker of lightning briefly lit the room, but for once, Sarah didn't feel uneasy. She felt safe. David tilted her chin and kissed her slowly, deeply, with the kind of tenderness that only years of love could shape. "You're my forever," he whispered against her lips. "There's no one else. There never will be." Sarah closed her eyes, letting his words sink into the cracks of her doubts. She believed him. She believed them. The shadows that had haunted her finally melted away as the thunder rolled in the distance. Sarah rested her head on his shoulder, her fingers laced with his. They sat in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because sometimes love didn't need words at all. And in that moment, with the rain washing the world outside clean, Sarah realized something important. Marriage wasn't about never doubting, never fearing. It was about fighting through the storms, holding on even when your grip falters, and choosing each other again and again. David pressed a soft kiss to her temple, whispering, "We'll be okay." And for the first time in days, Sarah smiled. "We already are."